All right, people, welcome to another Coffee radio show. Today I'm joined by a special guest, Mr. Freeman. How you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks a bunch for coming on, Mr. Freeman, because we need to discuss this after recent events from Whyt making the news public that he is pursuing a Kickstarter campaign with the top tier request being $400,000 and the bare minimum being $30,000. This is insane. So guys, I invited Mr. Freeman here because he and I started speaking recently, and he was a big fan and supporter of Whyt for the past 16 years. And so after the revelation that Whyt is doing a soft reboot, right, basically full reboots at this point, of the entire story and calling it AKA Volume 6, well, it looks like Mr. Freeman has had enough. He spent 16 years of his time and money investing in Saturday AM product, investing his time in watching their videos, and always hoping for the best for them, hoping for the best that Whyt, he's going to deliver on time, he's going to grow, he's going to improve his story. 16 years later, that never happened. Instead, things regressed. I said that Whyt Manga's art now looks absurdly gay. It looks like a gay black woman drew it, right? And you can't tell at all that the same person 16 years ago actually is drawing what we see is being drawn right now. It's as if he switched brains, hearts, and hands, and it's somebody else entirely. So, okay, Mr. Freeman, give us the intro and of when you started following Whyt Manga and what drew you to his craft and his journey all those years ago.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. And honestly, it's a sad day because I feel like I'm losing a part of myself in the process. And so just to give a little bit of a background, I was on YouTube when it began back in like 2007 or 8, and my cousins introduced me to YouTube, and I think maybe a year or two after that was when I first heard of Whyt Manga and his concept for Apple Black, which at that time was, I think, Strawberry Black. So I've been around since then. I've watched it evolve, and I think the single greatest thing about Apple Black that kind of just completely made it unique in my mind was that he had a cast of characters that was like supposed to be working both in union and also against each other, and this story that he was putting together. And I found that super cool because I'm a big fan of group stories, not like, like an X-Men group story, but like a small group that's actively doing things and then facing conflict along the way. So that's like my preferred type of story. And I've been in it hoping to see that happen. And in 16 years, it has not happened in the way that I've wanted it to happen. And unfortunately, it has not happened in a way that met the expectations that he had initially set for his project.
That had to be super disappointing. Now, do you remember the time before I don't want to say reboot, but before he added in Frederick's suggestions, right? Before
Yes.
Opal was there, and
Yes.
so on. Touch base on, because you did read and buy Volume 1, the first Volume 1 when it came out, right? Touch base on
Yes.
the
Yes.
experience of reading that version versus the later one.
Okay, so the experience of reading the first version, I would say this, chapter by chapter, it was exciting. And there was enough break as he was releasing, because at that time he was actually releasing on Manga Magazine. There was this website called Manga Magazine, and he was releasing his chapters at a regular cadence. And it's kind of like the hype cycle for like shonen jump manga when it comes out, like in a week by week type of a thing where it feels good after waiting to kind of read something. So you dismiss a lot of the issues that are there because you want to know what happens next. So his format was working for him back then, but the moment he compiled it into a volume, I have to say it is probably the single worst volume I have read, front cover to cover, just because it is so bad with the writing. And I don't mean to say that the story elements were bad. I just mean to say like the way it was written was bad. And it only really shows itself when you kind of condense everything and go like from in one round from chapter 1 to chapter 9, which is where I believe the first volume left off.
Right. That's actually a good point. There's always going to be more hype if somebody can deliver, chapters on a monthly basis. And because you forget, like you read it today and tomorrow, you kind of forgot a whole bunch of it. And reading it all in one, as you say, it exposes a lot that's wrong with it, right? So explain that feeling of hype, actually, because that's the problem with internet culture. The problem with internet culture is that it's all built on hype, built on facades, fake it till you make it and so on. And I think when somebody makes a drop that's like new chapters out, bada bing, bada bomb, everybody goes crazy. I would say 70% don't even read it anyway. They just click the like button, yeah, bro, or comment, yeah, bro, we in this, we winning, we eating, yada yada yada. But that dude ain't gonna go and read it. So explain how you at that time, much younger, what was that like? Because if we can properly explain that behavior, those emotions, anyone listening to this perhaps can be like, oh snap, that's me. I'm a hunchback. But before you explain that, we're going to take a quick break from our sponsor. Hey you tired of reading demoralizing stories, DEI and all that bullcrap? Sick and tired of the trash endings that we've been getting from the establishments? I know how you feel. So you came to the right place. Head on over to Koffee Originals and start reading some authentic, real indie manga over here called MANAA. Have a scroll, go around, select your favorite story or what appeals to you, click on what looks nice, and start reading some proper stories. Have a nice day. And we're back. All right, please go ahead and explain, bro.
Sure. So I think when I was younger, I was guilty of doing this not just for Apple Black, it was also for other series at the time I was following. The first pass of any read when you get a drop is kind of skimming it. Like you're reading it, but you're not really fully understanding it. And the reason why is because you're enthralled with the visuals. The visuals themselves tell a story. And I mean, if you're a good comic creator, you're going to have the story in the writing as well as in the visuals. So you end up experiencing the visuals first because it's the easiest to digest for your mind. And then after that, then you're on a subsequent read, which I did read multiple times, these chapters, because I wanted to experience those moments again and also get better context into what's happening. That's when I would start noticing, okay, this is a little bit wonky. Now, specifically with Apple Black, each chapter was very wordy, almost unnecessarily wordy, because he had to throw so many concepts at us to understand his world. And he did show visually, but he didn't show enough visually to make it work. It's almost like he was speed running. Okay, this is how my world works. And just understand it. And then he proceeded with the events in the story. And so you don't realize this again if you're doing week-to-week readings, because you're kind of glossing over that and enjoying the visuals, which were good. And there was a certain soul to his artwork that you could feel in the first 9 chapters. And that's before, again, any additions, because it was like, chapter 1.1 and 2.1 added in the Rockport editions, I believe. So, you could feel that soul, and that's what kind of drew you in. And obviously, like, when it comes to designing a world visually, that's Whyt's biggest skill. He can definitely design a lot of cool visual stuff, but that's not enough to keep you invested in the story. And so, like, my enthusiasm every single time will be like, okay, this is great. And then I do a second or third read. I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird, but I didn't give it much thought because, again, another drop is coming. So maybe the next drop is going to fix whatever issue I had with the previous drop.
Right. We were too young back then to maybe even have the bravery, or maybe just not have the ability to express, articulate that there's something wrong here, but I can't put my finger on it, right? And so you end up looking around and everybody's hyping up, so you think that you're the problem. You think that you're being a hater. When actually there is something legitimately wrong. It's just everybody around you, most people around you, they out there licking his boots. And you don't want to be the sore thumb that stands out, right? Because you know them hunchbacks, they're going to drag you down. And we see that in his comments section. When people were actually asking for receipts and stuff, one weirdo's like, why does that even matter? Like, dude, of course it matters because there's a claim. There's a claim that it's done well. Prove it, you know? Prove it.
And to add to that, like, and the people that end up coming to the defense, they haven't spent the time to read it.
That's the worst part. Remember, I don't know if you watched one video I made. I think it was when his account got hacked. And I said, this is the perfect time for Whyt to rebrand and to break off from Saturday. And, you know, he kind of responded to me through a guy asking him about me through that video on his Twitter. And he said, hey, I'm co-founder. I'm not going to leave my own company. He's crazy. And two people made videos about him being hacked. And both those people have not bought his books, have not read Apple Sack at all.
Oh, yeah.
You know, bruh, it was nuts.
Yeah, I did watch that video, and in fact, it's cloud chasing. Like, you see some drama app, and then you just go and you're like, oh, let me write off the coattails of this. Like, you know, this is a just cause. Yeah, I'm part of the just. You know, it's virtue signaling. That's what it is.
Exactly, man. So that there proves, guys, once again that look, the whole indie manga space or indie comic space on the internet is honestly built on a damn facade. These people who get thousands of dollars on Kickstarter in particular, they are former industry pros, okay? They were in the mainstream. Their names are well known, and their target market is the same boomers or Gen Xers that were their age when they were producing those comics. After all, I made that video on Patreon about Gen Xers have the biggest spending power right now. Right? And second is boomers, then millennials. And Gen Z are like completely broke, Gen Alpha broke, and the gen after that, slavery. So when you understand the economics really, and why is it that they're able to generate so much cash so quickly, they know who they're appealing to, and of course they have a big name behind their back. But Whyt Manga doesn't have that. 16 years in this game. Doing what exactly? But anyway, man, so when did you start noticing the collapse that Whyt ended up, you know, falling into? In what year?
Oh man, it was, believe it or not, it was the beginning of 2013. That's when I first felt it, because that was when he released, right after he released the first volume on the iteration with, how should we say it, you know, in a way that's not so mean, but it had a lot of issues. So the moment I had that volume in my hand, I was very excited, by the way, to get it. But the moment I had it in my hand and I actually read it through, I was flabbergasted, because the amount of lack of attention to detail was staggering. And it's like, this is you know, Whyt Manga. He's rated at this time in 2012, 2013. He's rated top of the top. Like, there's no contention. He's one of the best online indie mangaka there is. And nobody has anything else to say but good things about him. And there's very, very few critics. And he puts out a product like this that's riddled with like a lot of issues. And I'm not just talking about like, you know, the writing stuff, but like design issues with how the book is created. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, how did this happen?
Right.
This guy had the most potential to make the most return on investment with his brand that he's built up. And this product came out, and it's nothing like what anybody would expect from it. And that's where I started to really have doubts.
And okay, I remember for me, when volume 2 came out, my first reaction was, wait, we are jumping into a mass scale war in volume 2. Suddenly you have all these other characters coming in, characters wearing burqas, you know, generic designed black people with the dreadlocks and Booker T, WWE stuff. I'm like, is this satire or something? Is this a parody? What's going on here? You know, suddenly.
No, okay.
I
have to interject because I have to tell you something that's very interesting. So I didn't put this together until actually just like a few minutes before our call, believe it or not. But if you look on his DVR at this time, almost every single character that gets thrown at us in the next 4 volumes is a character he already had a design for. So my thinking, this is speculatory, I don't really know if this is the case, but my thinking is he was clearing his creative floor at this time, because he had also, you know, with the release of the first volume, he was fully into, you know, the company he's co-founding at this time. And he's clearing like everything he had creatively to make room for what I believe he thought was next. And it's just really interesting to see how it came up, because again, his single greatest flaw as a writer is that he throws too many things at his audience and expects them to just understand it to get to the good stuff.
Right. He doesn't actually, I wouldn't say hold your hand, but there is no beginning, middle, and end for him. He doesn't understand that. He definitely is, and he always has been a hunchback. I guess just couldn't see it. And the proof of his hunchbackery is in what was written in the Kickstarter campaign when he mentioned shonen hype and aura farming. That's some hunchback retardation. Like pure unbridled retardation right there. And I'm like, nigga, what? So now going back to that volume 2, I was just so shocked as to how could you start a massive war like this so soon when we don't even actually know these other characters and their backstories that much. Well, we don't care about them that much. And then you introduce this villain, Caesar, and what a lame name for such a design. Like, that design does not coincide with a name such as Caesar. It just felt so random, bruh. And, man, that was when he basically stopped talking to me, because I did make a review on Volume 2 when it came out, and I showed it to him, and he never said anything after that. I didn't criticize it a lot, but I did hint that, well, at least there isn't a lot of political agendas in this, but I was hinting that yes, there is. You know, yes, there is. And I guess he caught whiff of that, and he decided to distance himself. So I was like, wait, dude, so you mostly talk to people who suck you off and nothing else? Like, what about honest criticism? I mean, the fans themselves who can be like, okay, can you fix this? You don't have to add anything or take away anything. Maybe just fix it. He doesn't fix it. You know, he's never fixed it. So what did you read Volume 2? Hey guys, if you want to see the full video and its context, consider joining my Patreon. That's where the real caffeine is at. Cheers.